So anyway, that's just our heroes. That's how much change there is in the heroes. Like you can put the old Delta next to the like new Delta, and you can tell there's just like a difference in tone and character. Like that's just what it is. But I think if there's any more big differences, you can look at the bad guys, the Locusts. For one, they're not called the Locusts anymore. They're called the Hive. The big boomers are now called Scions. Scions are actually the original Locust drones, all beefed up. And tickers have been replaced with trackers. So, TC changed everything about the Locusts. Like, everything, practically. Like, they're all different now. And, like, Juvies, though they have gone through a change, are now people who have been potted and are being turned into the Hive. Okay. Like, I think that's one of the biggest changes that TC made. Like, the Locusts used to be like this big mystery. Like, no one knew where they came from. No one knew what they wanted. They just showed up and started killing everyone. And that was sort of their appeal to them. Like, they were just these bad monsters that you couldn't reason with and just wanted to destroy you. Gears 2 through 3 kind of told us, like, the Locust motive to escape the underground because they were, like, fighting a different war, like, with the Lambent and losing. So they decided to go into a war with the surface. Yeah, thinking about it doesn't really make much sense to me either. But now TC has, like, not only given the Locust an origin in Gears 5, but has made it so people can be turned into one. The only thing that remains unclear to me is if Juvies are indeed a younger form of Locust, and if they can live long enough. Like, if they could live long enough in the army, they could mature into, like, a full-fledged Locust or drone, as it's called now, like Locust or drone. Like, I was always confused on that. Like when I played the original Gears of War, I always assumed that the Juvies were just like the lower, younger form of a grub, and if you let them live long enough, they could turn into a full-fledged grub. That's what I sort of always believed. And I think in 4 there's a part, or 5, there's just a part where, like, Kate and Del, or JD and Del, or somebody, they're like talking about, like, oh, do you think the Juvies turn into these? And one of the characters just goes, nah. And I'm thinking to myself, how does this character know that? Like, this is a part where, like, the drones are being introduced. I'm pretty sure it was in 4. And I'm just like, how would they know that if, like these new characters did not grow up with the grubs. They didn't grow up with these monsters. Like, so how would they know about them? Like, based on story alone from other soldiers. Like, that's all they have. They just have stories. They have scary monster stories. That's all they have. They don't have any scientific evidence or anything like that, I don't think. Yeah, it's just weird. It's just a weird, like, parallel to it. They're, like, these enemies. They're so different now. And I kind of like the old ones more than I did the new ones. If we wanted to make some more comparisons, like the leeches, I guess are what Gears 1 would call the krill. I feel like TC was trying to play up a part on, like, how scary the krill was, and so they came up with the leeches kind of flying around, like, especially when they're, like, you know, when they're in flock form, they're kind of like the krill were in Gears of War 1. And I want to say the pouncers kind of replaced the blood mounts, because, like, that's sort of like the beast form to it. With, I guess, the only real new species to come from nothing are the snatchers, I guess. But then I guess you could argue that they're sort of like flightless reavers. But I don't know, they're just too different in my opinion, I guess. So I kind of guess I would count the snatchers as kind of being different. But then you have carriers, like, which I thought at first they were pretty new. Like, that's what I thought at first. But then I realized, like, they're kind of more like the Cedars, like from the first gen, because the carriers don't jam up things like Cedars did, but they'll shoot these things that they call cankers, and they kind of look like Nemesis, like how the Cedars would shoot the Nemesis pods at you or something like that. So TC changed like our heroes, but also our bad guys. Why? Like, if you change the main cast and the antagonist of a story, is it even the same story anymore? Like, the goals of the protagonist should also change, should they, at that point? Like, how can you make these new protagonists the same goal as the old protagonist if you have a new antagonist antagonizing the protagonist? And if not, then isn't it already the same story as your previous characters? So, you know, the one that your audience kind of stuck around with. So wouldn't that make your new story not as good because it's just the same story but with new characters? And your audience is already attached to the old characters? Like, it just, the math's not adding up. Like, it doesn't make much sense. And even some of the weapons have went missing, and that's kind of upsetting. Like, where's the sawed-off shotgun? I love that thing. Like, Casey thought I was crazy for using it, but I liked the sawed-off shotgun. Call me crazy. I'm not a big Gnasher fan. Like, I get it. Like, the Gnasher is useful on your situation, and it's pretty much unstoppable. But I mean, like, I have more fun using the other weapons than I do the Gnasher. But yeah, a lot of the weapons are gone from 4 and 5 and the other ones. Like, where are the mortars? Where's the one-shot? Where are the scorchers? The boom shield, the cleaver, that pistol that the Cantus like to use all the time. Like, ink grenades and stim grenades. Where'd all these things go? Did the COG just stop making them because, oh, we're in peacetime now, we don't need to make those anymore? Like, that's not how military works. Like, military will take their tech and they don't just stop using it. That, like, it's pretty rare that they'll stop using it because there's usually, they make improvements along the way, you know? So where'd all they go? Like, if you're gonna push into the future with the franchise, like, shouldn't you tell why these weapons aren't around anymore? Or think the main reason everything seems, like, off to me is because I'm not using the same heroes, I'm not fighting the same enemy, and I'm not using the same weapons either. So everything's changed. Like, everything. So is it still Gears of War then? I'd say yes and no. In Gears 4, the analogy of a cocoon is used on evolution and life. But I think the same could be said about the series itself. If Gears 1 through Judgment is the caterpillar form, then TC is the cocoon that is changing the series, breaking it down, and pushing its evolution into something else. But the thing about evolution is that it's not always graceful, it doesn't happen overnight, and the final product really isn't the same anymore. So can I be mad at TC for changing this series too much? Sure, I can, like, but when I look at it, how could they have continued the story? It's not easy to continue a series off of the tailcoats of its predecessor. It would make more sense to start the story over and write it how you want to. And I kind of see that's what TC's doing. Is that easy? No, it's not. It's not easy to trying to keep things fresh while keeping things the same that people liked. I understand how that must have been, like, frustrating to keep things the same but also make change. Like, change isn't easy to accept, you know. I feel like that's a big hurdle that TC kind of has to go over. And I wasn't going to talk about the online modes, but I feel like it's part of the problem. Bless you. Yeah, I've got her locked in the other room. She's not allowed to come out until I'm done recording. I'm kidding. She's doing her own sewing stuff. So yeah, I wasn't gonna talk about the online modes, and I wish I knew what was going on with my color right now, because like sometimes I'm really blue, but then back here I'm like not. So it's just weird. So yeah, I wasn't gonna talk about the online modes, but I feel it's part of the problem. Like, Gears had this long history with multiplayer modes, and Gears 5 feels like it's the most empty it's ever been. And that's all I'm gonna say about that right now. So over the course of the GF campaign train, that's why I deemed the playing co-op with my girlfriend. She really liked to snipe, and she kind of really grew to adore the long shot. And she really liked the one shot. And there were moments where she could like go ooh or oh whoa, like particularly where she would like make a lot of things explode. Or when she rode the Brumac in Gears 2 and made stuff explode, like she really liked those parts. Like by the middle of 2, she started to ask me if there were any girl Gears, and I told her she'd be introduced to some by Gears 3. And by Gears 3, she kind of liked Anya Shroud, and she thought the idea of the lady on the comms coming down to kick ass and take names was badass. Like she even liked Sam and her little plucky attitude. But by the end of 3, this new player to the series had gone on a journey alongside this band of characters and their mission to put it into the Locust. Like, Gears 3 was finally showing like girl Gears in a game, and what did TC do? They benched her, killed them off. Smart move, TC. Real smart move. And it just kind of sucks. Like, most of the elements that were in those previous Gear games that my girlfriend liked, they're removed in the newer versions. So it's like how, like, you're trying to appeal to like new gamers, but this new gamer like some of the stuff on the old things. So like what are you giving us, really? What are you giving, like if your whole plan was to allure a new generation of gamers, and yet if they go back and play your old ones and liked stuff that you removed from it, then don't you think that's kind of weird? Like, in fact, TC has removed so much of the series, even in online multiplayer. I have to ask, what the heck is going on over there? Like, how can you remove so much from a series and call it the next line for the series? Like, you're supposed to build up your game, not take away from it. So Gears 5 launch was also terrible. It was riddled with bugs, and even the playthrough we did, like even the playthrough that me and my girlfriend did, still had a few. And a few of them had to, like, we had to restart the game entirely, just like fix. And all these flaws are easy to point out, but there are some things that I enjoyed about the new series. For instance, the direction of going forward in a generation gives us a chance to meet our cherished heroes' children and see what kind of their golden years are being spent doing. Like, I like seeing the relationships between Marcus and JD and the interactions they have. It would have been nice to see Anya and her interactions too, but you know, that's just not gonna happen apparently. And I love the idea that Baird like made DBs because like he wanted to save as many lives as possible, and he wanted mankind to be able to like focus on other stuff. So he made like DBs to sort of like carry the weight and stuff. Like, I like that. That's a good character idea. That's a good character concept of how you have this asshole engineer who like complains about all the grunt work, and in the future he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make an army that can do all that grunt work, so it's not burdening other people. Like, that's good character development. I like that TC was going forward with that. But and I'm a sucker for that kind of stuff. Like, I'm a sucker for like character banter, character interactions. I like good dialogue in games, movies, TVs. Like how a character interacts with another one is kind of that's my hook. That's what I like. And I guess that's another thing I like about Gears 4 and 5 is the DB characters. I liked the controversy in the world that like they kind of have going on in the background about the DBs, where some people don't trust DBs or hate that they've been like that some of the DBs took over their previous jobs. But then others like having them around because it makes life easier. And I sort of feel like that's kind of where we feel like that's like real world crap that like we have with like robots and stuff. We worry about moving technology too forward that like it can kind of burden our society. And I like how kind of TC kind of played with that like idea. I think just DBs in general were like, I think they were supposed to be like a different form of lambent, sort of. I wouldn't say that for sure because lambent was kind of its own weird species. But then like I could see TC taking the DBs and being like, oh, they gained artificial intelligence, or yeah, they're gonna be the new lambent. They're gonna be fighting Gears and Locust. I'm just like, I mean, I guess like maybe that's the reason Terminator was like introduced, because they're gonna do like a robot overthrow arc or something like that. I don't know, because like Damien's little AI, she was like getting sentient and she was learning really fast. So like I wouldn't be surprised if like Gear 6 was like, oh yeah, that AI, she got really smart, took over a couple DB factories, and now changed all their programming, and now they're all different. So like I could see TC doing that, even though like I don't think that'd be a good story. Like I think it's possible. I don't know. I gotta sit up, you know, just be more straightforward. And the other thing that my girlfriend pointed out was how much she was enjoying Gears 4 because it gave you a perspective of what life was like for stranded people instead of being in the cog. And she was honestly torn. Like, she loved how safe and clean Settlement 2 looked. Or Settlement 5, sorry. But hated like all the practices that the cog had done throughout the series, like the Hammer of Dawn Strikes, the sinking of Jacinto, and the game doesn't even mention all the other dark crap that the cog like do in the comics or the books. And so like she was kind of like, man, I hate the cog, but I guess they kick ass. So it was like she was definitely torn between that. And Gears 4 did a good job of like playing as not cog people, because you were kind of, the cog kind of became bad guys to you. You were trying to be it, and it kind of like highlighted what life was like as a stranded person. But then Gears 5 is kind of like, nah, screw all that. We're just gonna, you're a cog again. You're a cog soldier again. You're back to that, and it's just kind of like, okay, I guess. And I guess I think, but like some people, they don't like the aged up characters, like because it benches them. It benches those other characters, and then TC's too busy showing us these new characters and not showing us what like the old characters have been up to. Like Cole's back, but they didn't say what he's been up to, or if he tried to get Thrashball back up and running, or if he has a kid's running around somewhere. Which is funny because I learned like a few days ago that Cole actually does have a kid, and I didn't know that, like, because I'm not up to date with the comics or books or anything like that. So like when I was out on the Gears forums looking at stuff, and somebody's like, oh, are we gonna see Cole's kid? I'm like, Cole had a kid? So it's just like, and she looks like a cool character, so like I'll be interested in seeing her make a entry into the game itself. Like I'm sure she'll make an appearance in Gears 6. I actually wouldn't be surprised if she became the player's number 2 and they went back to JD or something like that. It'd be weird to do Phoenix and Coltrane family, I guess, but I guess it's doable. It's whatever. And then what was Sam up to? Like I know she kind of only made an appearance in 3, but like from what I recall, people really liked her from Gears 3, and I guess TC shipped them with Baird. No kids or anything, as far as I'm aware. So like, what has she been doing all this time? Just laid back, doing nothing? Like you have this really good character, you aged her up, and then you didn't really give her anything. Like, what the hell, TC? And what happened to Jace? Like, he made an appearance in Gears 3, and he had a lot going on for him in the comics, I feel. Like, his character was really good, like, with the whole orphan and, like, his backstory stuff, but, like, it hasn't done anything with him. I don't even think it mentioned him. Maybe it mentioned him, but I don't think like they're not doing anything with that character. And I'm just like, well, what's he look like older? Like, he should be Marcus's age, I would think, at this point, because when he was in the game in 3, he was pretty young. So like, I would think he would be Marcus's age back in like 3 or something like that. I don't know. So even though I feel conflicted on this new evolution to the game series, I still want to see it succeed, but at the same time, I don't want it to lose its way. You get me? Like, there's just so much changing to the series that it's almost not the same anymore. And while I want it to like move on and be good, at the same time, the changes that are being made aren't as cool. I don't know. And yeah, that's how I kind of feel about the series right now. Like, I want it to go in a good direction. I want good things to happen. I want TC to kind of take it in a good direction. But like, if they're not listening to feedback, which they kind of had a problem with at launch, like they're only just now trying to like do feedback with other people. Like, for some odd reason, they moved over to Twitter instead of sticking onto their forums, like where most of their fans like to comment on things. And they like to comment there because they have more characters to use other than Twitter. So it's just kind of like, TC, I get you want to do what's popular and jump on Twitter, but seriously, just jump on forums a little more often and, you know, look at what people are doing. And lately, they were kind of in a weird hiatus, but now lately they're kind of punching out some videos of interviews, which is good, because we've been kind of, and I think in the gaming industry, we've kind of been in a weird dry spell lately with like a lot of things, like with Nintendo and Sony, because of no E3 being this year. We're kind of like, what's to look forward to? we're kind of in a weird generation of like getting hyped for new stuff, and there hasn't been much to be hyped about, so it's kind of sad. But that's all I kind of got to say about the series so far. Like, I could talk on the online modes, which is kind of where you're at if you're done talking about story stuff, but I could save that for another day. I know there's like a couple stuff I want to talk about how like changes to Gear 6 that I'd like to see. I'd love to talk about that, but as of right now, I'm kind of like, what's next? What's gonna happen? I kind of want you to go back to the old characters, but at this point you've aged them up and kind of put them in a bad spot. There's potential, but like, you might want to hire like a really good writer. That's all I'm saying, TC. Okay. I hope the new characters can develop and be really good as the old ones, but that doesn't mean I don't want to stop seeing the old ones. So, yeah. That's all I got to say about a game series so far. I haven't been playing Gears 5 lately. I've been doing other things. I've been trying to edit a lot of my videos that I have stocked up on my computer, and trying to edit them and make more things. I also recently got a PS Vita, and I've been looking into a lot of like mods and stuff. So like, I've been following a lot of people that like to mod things, and so like, my hope for the future is like I have a really cool garage where I can just mod stuff, but that's like topics for other days. So yeah, guys, thanks for listening. I totally want to hear your opinions in the comments below. Definitely like, subscribe. You know where all those buttons are. So whatever. I don't like reminding people to do all that. I feel like if I just make good content, like, people will come. But you know, I guess you gotta do it, because that's what everybody else is doing, even though I don't want to. But I keep saying totally, I'd love to hear feedback from you guys about the series, where it's going. Where would you like to see it go? What characters are you attaching to right now? Where do you want the Phoenix family to be like doing in the next Gears 6 games? Like, yeah, that's it. Adios, guys. Have a good one.